council at the moment.
No.
Right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Northern Area Planning Committee on Tuesday, the 11th of April. You all had a lovely Easter break, and a particularly warm welcome to the members of the public who have turned out on this rather stormy afternoon to be with us here at the Exchange. We're always delighted to have members of the public to come and witness our committee. I am Councillor Sherry Jesperson. I'm chair of this committee. With me is Councillor Mary Penfold, who's the vice chair. Officers we have with us today are Hannah Smith, Planning Area Manager, Jim Bennett, Senior Planning Officer, Steve Banks, Senior Planning Officer, Jane Green, Planning Officer, Lara Altry is our lawyer, Steve Savage is our Transport Development Manager, Megan Rochester and Joshua Kennedy are our Democratic Services team, keeping us all in order this afternoon. For the benefit of the visitors and for anybody watching who's never watched a planning committee before, I'll just briefly outline the procedures for the day. So we have a number of planning applications before us today, which we will consider in turn. For each application, I will invite the case officer to present their report and recommendations, followed by presentations from any other officers. The reports and background papers have been available for members of the committee to read and to ask the case officer any questions prior to the meeting. Next, I will invite those members of the public who have registered to speak to address the committee. Please come to the little table at the front here when called and press the microphone till it goes red, and then you will start to speak. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and in the interest of fairness, I am reasonably firm on the 3 minutes. You can get a lot said in 3 minutes if you've practiced. When we've heard from all the public speakers, I will close the public part of the meeting and no further interventions from the floor are permitted. Committee members may ask questions on points of clarification at that point, and then when we've asked all of our questions, the committee will then deliberate and come to a view and a vote. So that's the proceedings for the day. Moving on then to our agenda. Megan, do we have first of all any apologies?
We received apologies after.
Thank you very much. Committee members, do any of you have any declarations of interest on any items before us? As always, if anything comes to mind during the course of the discussion, just say so. Committee, may we confirm the minutes of our previous meeting, which was on the Tuesday, the 7th of March? Agreed, thank you. I will sign them at the end of the meeting. Public participation I have covered. So now we move on, if we may, to our planning applications, agenda item 6. This is application P RES 2022 06180. This is a recommendation to approve 80 dwellings at Commonmead Lane in Gillingham. Now, committee members, you will know that we've seen this site a number of times before. We granted outline permission for 80 homes in June 2022 after a lengthy and thorough discussion. Today, we are considering reserved matters. So we're asked to determine appearance, layout, scale, and landscaping. Could Jim Bennett, if you would like to give us your report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I get into the presentation, there are updates.
Thank you.
We have acknowledgement from the highway officer that the scheme is satisfactory as far as highway impacts are concerned. The applicant has asked me to mention that 5 of the units will be wheelchair accessible units, and in response to queries about tree planting, they've requested that I will confirm that they will be willing to plant a number of trees in the site potentially allocated to the town council to the north of the site. under the provisions of the Section 106. There's also an additional condition which springs to mind, which would be to put in a condition to remove permitted development rights to insert windows in the first floor elevations of the plots numbers 1 and 7 in the interest of privacy. Also a typing error in the report which refers to the width of the wildlife corridor as 9 metres when in fact it is 7. Getting into the report. Proposal is brought to committee following objection from Gillingham Town Council. 2 issues really. They had highway concerns following some reservations raised over highways, although as I've suggested, those issues have been resolved, and also regarding the non-provision of allotments within the site. As said, the principle of 80 units has previously been accepted on this site following the approval of the outline permission associated with these reserve matters. The site is indicated red on this plan here. Blue area is the northern field. The blue area is the northern field referred to as the Gillingham Town Council. The site in relation to the wider area of Gillingham is in this location here, some 1.2 kilometres distant from the town centre. The site has had some planning history, as previously mentioned. A proposal for 80 units, an outline proposal was refused back in 2021. The outline was approved, a subsequent outline was approved later in 2021. There have also been a variation of condition associated with the vehicle access to the site and for a suds basin in the northern field. This was the indicative plan submitted at the outline stage, which showed a looser version of the proposal, but essentially demonstrated that 80 units could be provided within the site boundaries. This is the aerial photograph of the site showing the rights of way, existing rights of way through the site in this direction here, and also in here. Also the relationship of the proposal site to existing properties on Freemway in this location, and the Mellows Care Home in this location here. Site access approved at outline stage is in this location here off Common Mead Lane. Going through a few of the photos of the site, this shows where the site access will go through. This section of hedgerow will unfortunately be removed. This is the Mellows Care Home. This is the curtilage of number 7 Greenway. This photograph is taken from Common Mead Lane, looking north into the site with Mellows Care Home in this location here. Greenway on the right-hand side in this location here. This photograph is looking south with the care home to the right-hand side. This one's taken from a more westerly direction, looking back across the existing field along the line of the footpath which crosses the site towards Greenway. And these photographs basically show distant views of the conservation area in the background, which is some 500 metres away to the north. The site has the plan has gone through several iterations following the initial submission at the reserve matters stage. In response to the comments we had from consultees and the notified parties, we had a significant level of written response from members of the public. And to go through the changes that have been introduced, that perhaps the main change was a loosening up of this area here, closest to the residents of Freemway. The initial submission showed 11 units in this location, whereas the revised proposal shows 7, and with a wildlife corridor 7 metres in width, gives some separation between the proposed development and the existing residents of Freemway. There were also changes to the distribution of affordable housing throughout the site. Highway issues which were raised during the initial consultation were addressed, and appropriately amended plans received. Dwelling designs were changed in terms of their designs, articulation, materials, architectural detailing, boundary treatments, and layouts. Landscaping was a significant point of concern. The landscape and urban design teams wanted to see more street tree planting. And while street tree planting is perhaps not as prevalent as we'd have liked, there is a lot of planting to the site peripheries, along the entrance to the site, within the open spaces to the north and south of the right of way which crosses the site, and additional tree planting in this location here. Street trees have been introduced into this location here, as well as in this location here and sporadically on some of these streets. As I've said, the applicant has made it clear that they'd be willing to put more trees into the open space to the north of the site when plans for the landscaping of that site are submitted as part of the Section 106 agreement agreed at the outline stage. There were also some impingements on the rights of way which cross the site, so that amendments had to be made to the play areas in order to ensure that that wouldn't be subject to a footpath diversion order in the future. Take you through some of the typical house types. This is one of the larger house types. One particular one has a chimney, articulated roof. There's architectural detail such as headers and sills, which will give it a pleasant appearance. Most elevations are fenestrated to give it a appropriate appearance. There's again a 4-bed unit, slightly less embellished than the previous one, but it does have things such as door canopies and mullioned windows, subservient roof forms, and headers, sills, and architectural details such as buttressed eaves and corbelling. This is one of the affordable units. It's a shallow plan form, but again, it will incorporate architectural details such as roof canopies over the doors, different coloured doors, and to make them and architectural detailing to make them indistinguishable from the market housing. And this is one of the affordable units with a deeper plan form, and this will be a terraced unit in groups of 3 and 4 units. This plan shows some typical street scene elevations, showing articulation of form with some chimneys incorporated on about approximately 25% of the units to give a bit more visual interest. Also different types of roofing materials and facing materials. This was the materials plot. It's not very clear on this, but this does show some of these corner plots with the yellow faces. These will actually be finished in stone facing. Other buildings will be finished in red brick, brown brick, and rendered to give the materials palette a diverse appearance. Roofing will be finished in a mixture of artificial slate and clay tile. This plan shows the distribution of affordable housing throughout the site. It's been a bone of contention that they weren't adequately dispersed around the site, although the housing enabling team did this to be acceptable. And while they look quite closely clustered, these do in fact relate to different roads throughout the scheme, so they will in fact produce a mixed field between the market housing and the affordable. For instance, these two face this shared surface in this location. Yeah, these dwellings face onto the central spine. These dwellings face onto the southern road. These 3 will face onto the corner of the northern road. This plan shows the the mix of bedroom sizes throughout the scheme, where the purple units, there's only 3 or 4 of those, so there'll be 5-bed units. The royal blue ones will be 4-bed units. The blue ones will be 3-bed units. So the sky blue ones, and the green ones will be 2-bed units. So there's a good distribution of house types and sizes throughout the scheme. The proposal doesn't include any flats, which the Housing Enabling team are happy to see, considering that the proposal provides the full quota of affordable housing at 25%. This plan shows the whole landscaping proposal for the site. I'll show you some other ones where this shows the wildlife corridor in closer detail, adjoining Freem Way, as well as the position of the locally equipped area of play, and some of the street tree planting that is to be provided in these locations. The wildlife corridor, as I've suggested, is 7 metres wide and will be planted with a mixture of heavy standards indicated by the circles here, some lower hedge planting, and some ground grass which can be mown. The purpose of the wildlife corridor is to provide a migratory route for smaller mammals and birds. It won't be able to provide a corridor for larger mammals such as deer, but there's a condition proposed which requires submission of details of fencing in the location of plots 1 and 7 to prevent antisocial behaviour occurring in the rear here, but to facilitate wildlife migration through the site. This proposal shows the position of the Suds Pond, which will help attenuate surface water runoff for the site, as well as the northern field, which will, if Gillingham Town Council choose to accept it, will be gifted to the Town Council. If not, it will be managed as under the provisions of the management company for the wider site. This is a plan that the applicant has provided to me to show the position of 2 artist impressions of the site. The first one in this location here, which I'll show you shortly, and the second one in this position here. So yeah, this is just an artistic impression looking through the public open space, showing how the scheme will look once built, with the mixed palette of materials. And the potential, the appearance of the dwellings in that location, and in the second location, looking back towards the western portion of the site again, with these buildings in the foreground, corner buildings of stone and a mixture of red brick, brown brick, and render through the remainder of the site. So. The application is recommended for approval. That the presumption in favour lies with the proposal in view of the fact that outline permission has already been granted, and the fact that the council is failing its housing delivery test. Provision of 80 new homes will provide make a valuable contribution to that housing delivery in the county, in a sustainable location, reasonably close to the town centre. Significant economic and social benefits would be derived. So the Section 106 obligation is secured at the outline stage, and overall the benefits of the proposal far outweigh to grant.
Thank you very much indeed. That's helpful. Jim, we have Steve Savage with us, the highways officer, who you have no report, but is there any comment you would like to make at this stage, or would you just take questions if they come up?
Good Chair, I think it's best to take questions if I may. I think we discussed this when it originally came in its outline form.
Yeah, we have indeed, but Steve's here to answer any questions if you have any. Right. Going then to our members of the public who would like to speak. First of all, could I ask Malcolm Briggs to come up to the little hot seat there? Thank you very much. Well done, thank you.
I'm speaking today as a resident of Freem Way, also representing a number of my neighbours who cannot be here this afternoon, and also as the acting chair of Gillingham Deserves Better, a not-for-profit residents association. The site is described by the planning officer as sensitive. An earlier scheme that was totally unacceptable to residents and the council alike was rejected, but this version is still an attempt to shoehorn a standard suburban development into a rural setting and remains unacceptable to the residents. This is the point at which the open countryside meets the township, and currently the transition is through Freem Way, where densities are 4 dwellings per acre. This proposal is for 10 per acre, and although the government encourages the effective use of land, the National Planning Policy Framework states that the planning decision should take into account the desirability of maintaining an area's prevailing character and setting, which this scheme clearly does not. It should also be sympathetic to local character, including the surrounding built environment and landscape setting, which this scheme clearly is not. It therefore fails paragraphs 124D and 130C of the NPPF. The bricks and tiles being proposed are clearly from the builder's standard palette, and the application of stonework to just 2 walls of less than 10% of the properties does not match the Cotswold stone and sandstone corbelling that is exclusively used on the Freem Way estate. Whilst we are pleased that a wildlife corridor has been included, at just 7 metres wide, it is insufficient to facilitate small deer using it and needs to be increased, according to the British Deer Society, to a minimum of 20 metres. By doing so, the builders would move the houses adjacent to Freem Way to the distances demonstrated in the indicative plan of the original application. We are also concerned about the width of the roadways on the estate. It would appear to us that one parked car would prevent a fire engine or ambulance getting past to an emergency, and this would suggest that 80 houses is just too many for this site. We therefore request that this application is refused and the builder asked to produce a version that is more sympathetic to the sensitive nature of the site. If the council are minded to approve it, we would ask that all reserved matters continue to be subject to public scrutiny and not delegated. We would also ask for conditions to be applied regarding the hours of working, parking of contractors and subcontractors' vehicles, maintenance of the wildlife corridor, and siting of storage and concrete plants away from existing residents. We appreciate this may seem unnecessary, but this applicant has already demonstrated their general approach by blocking the public footpaths in this field without permission or even any application for such permission at that time, and in the last few weeks has installed low newt fencing around the site as if they feel today's committee's decision is a foregone conclusion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next we hear from James Cross, the agent.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in favour of proposed development at Common Mead Lane, Gillingham. My name is James Cross, and I'm the Head of Planning at Barratt David Wilson Homes. The application before you today follows the grant of outline planning permission in June 2022 for up to 18 new homes. It's an important point to note that planning permission has therefore already been granted for the residential use of this land, and this application specifically seeks to address the detailed matters. We are pleased that following dialogue with officers within the council, it has been concluded that the proposal achieves a design, layout and density that reflects the character of the locality and will be acceptable in terms of design and amenity. As a provider of new homes across the Dorset region, we have a number of sites throughout Dorset which will provide up to 530 new homes over the next 3-year period. Our mantra as a provider of new homes is the best way to showcase the quality of our development is through our most recent developments. As the old saying goes, you're only as good as your last piece of work. Therefore, I want to reassure members that it is very much in the interest of Barratt David Wilson Homes to ensure that the development is finished to a high quality standard, as shown in the illustrative CGIs contained within the presentation. The outline planning permission that was granted in June 2022 secured the residential use of the site. However, the benefits of this outline consent can only be delivered with the granted reserved matters consent. We are proud to confirm that the development will deliver 20 new affordable homes on the site, which will be provided to families who are most in need through an appointed housing provider. The outline consent also secured the use of the Northern Field for public open space. We are pleased to have worked with Gillingham Town Council and are agreeing the specification of this area, which will include a fruit tree orchard. We are presently working with the Week Primary School with the intention of securing education-specific boards and planting within the Northern Field to enhance the learning of biodiversity for children in Gillingham. Such benefits can only be secured through the grant of reserved matters consent. So in coming to your decision today, I'd ask that you give great weight to the following 3 matters. Firstly, we have made specific amendments to the scheme, including enhanced planting in response to consultee comments. Secondly, development will provide for 20 new affordable homes for families in the greatest need in Gillingham. Thirdly, the development will secure the Northern Field as public open space with education enhancements for early years children within the area of Gillingham. I'd like to thank officers for their diligence and continued feedback throughout this application process to secure the best possible outcome for residents of Gillingham. This is a central goal and responsibility that Barratt David Wilson Homes share equally. We therefore respectfully request that members support the application to grant consent today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That concludes our public speakers for today. So committee, we will now take questions. This is matters for clarification rather than for debate, if you don't mind first. And in my usual way, I'll go round the table. I see that Councillor Heatley has his pen in his hand and is making copious notes. So would you like to start with any questions you might have?
I'm Councillor Brian Heatley from Robble and Wyke in Weymouth. I tend to turn to the climate implications bit, first of all. 2 or 3 queries. First of all, I see an awful lot of south-facing roofs there, but no mention of solar panels at all. Was there any discussion? I'm also intrigued by the reference to low carbon gas boilers. I'm wondering whether maybe that's just a gas boiler.
Thank you. Yes, low carbon gas boilers and solar panels. 2 good, very good questions.
There are a number of photovoltaics to be provided on the relevant facing roof slopes of dwellings. I think about units scheme will be provided with photovoltaic. 20. Not all houses will be suitable. Their roofs don't slope in the relevant direction, so that will be required to be built in it also. Sorry, the question on low carbon boilers.
Low carbon gas boilers. What is a low carbon gas boiler and how does it differ from a gas boiler? Don't know. All right, we will have to leave that as an unsolved mystery, but your scepticism is noted. Councillor Andrews, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor John Andrews from Sherborne East. A couple of questions. Tree roots. When you're putting trees next to roads and next to pavements, they tend to lift up if it's the wrong sort of trees. So can we make sure that the correct standard of trees are planted next to the roadways and footways?
Yeah, there is a condition requiring tree pit specifications to be provided in those locations where it's like the roots are likely to be impinged by hard surfaces.
Secondly, the parking for the affordable homes, is that allocated parking in a certain slot? I'm just thinking about later on when arguments start occurring, you're parked in my slot, you're parked in my slot, you know, and when they graduate to 2 cars in household, will there be enough parking on the road for those cars?
Thank you. Steve, one for you, please.
Not sure we've drilled down to that level of detail, Councillor, but the normality is that the social housing will have allocated spaces. There's a high provision of on-site parking with this development, i.e. garages and parking areas in front of them. We've ensured that the road is of sufficient width that we can have on-street car parking, and refuse vehicle and the fire tender, etc., can negotiate around them. We do try and future-proof these things because we're aware that families grow and people often need more car parking. So the answer to your question is hopefully we've provided enough and we've covered all options.
Thank you. And that answers the question that was raised by the first speaker, I think. So you can reassure us that there is access for emergency vehicles, even if there is on-street parking.
Indeed.
Just to clarify, because it was
Certainly, Chair. The roads that you can see on the plan before you are 5 metres wide within the site, 5.5 metres at the access. 5 metre width allows for a vehicle to park along one side and for a fire tender or a refuse vehicle to circulate around it. And you can see at the junction there's a number of lines drawn which indicate junction plateaus. So the target speed of the development is 20 miles per hour or less. So the roads you see before you are suitable for adoption should they be offered, i.e. the external roads. We've got 2 shared surface links which run across the centre of the site. We won't take those as adopted highways, but we're certain that they're safe and have due regard for inclusive mobility.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews, next question. Anything else?
Moving on.
Yes. No, it's all right. We can both be on. We're not
My next question is about, has any negotiation taken place? Because I understand there's no allotments on site, but has any negotiation taken place with Gillingham Town Council on the northern field, whether they can incorporate allotments on the northern field? I thought that'd be the ideal opportunity. And that's my 3 questions.
That's a good question. Would you like to explain to us the position with regard to allotments, because that has come up?
We haven't directly negotiated on provincial allotments, but the outline proposal was the appropriate time to request allotments come forward with this scheme or any contribution. But ultimately, it will be up to the town council. Should they take that northern field, if they wish to put allotments on that field, then they could legitimately do so, going through the appropriate channels.
Thank you. Councillor Andrews.
Could that be something that's negotiated in the 106 agreement? Just a thought.
The thing is, we negotiated the 106 agreement outline, and we didn't include allotments because allotments at that point had not been raised and not been asked for. I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, so that we can't add allotments in now, but there's a big field at the town council. We have 2 members of the town council on our committee who might want to comment on that. Thank you very much, but it's a good question. Thank you. Councillor Ryder.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have any questions because I've already asked case officer.
I knew you would. Indeed. Thank you. Councillor Stella Jones.
Stella Jones, Dorchester. The affordable housing, is it going to be affordable forever, or is it actually affordable to people to buy, or a mention of social housing? Is it social housing to rent?
But could you clarify the tenures for us? Thank you. It's mixed tenures.
A mix of affordable rent and shared equity. So I believe 14 of them will be affordable rent, which will essentially be affordable in perpetuity. Shared ownership could be discount market units, which could be made available to people wishing to purchase at a discount to it. So they may not be available in perpetuity, but they will offer the opportunity for young people to get onto the property ladder through this proposal. Accordance with policy 8.
But
Yes,
isn't in
thank you.
perpetuity then?
Yes, that is in the report, and as I understand it, the housing enabling team are satisfied. That's our backstop. Yeah.
Housing enabling are fully satisfied. They're very happy with this scheme because it provides, it's all housing. There's no flats, so the affordable housing isn't going to be discounted into flats. It will all be housing.
That's good. Thank you for that question. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Pothcary.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have any questions. The ones I'm concerned about have been answered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carol Jones.
Very quick one. You mentioned that 5 units are going to be wheelchair accessible. Will that include any of the affordable units? And can we ensure that it does?
That'll be a question for the applicant. I'm not sure which units will be wheelchair accessible. They forwarded me a written proposal suggesting they were going to provide 5 wheelchair accessible units, but not precisely which units those were going to be. So sorry, I can't tell you which units they will be.
Okay, can
Is
we,
it possible we could condition that at least one of the larger properties affordable could be wheelchair accessible?
I'm not sure, well, let's ask the question of either of you. Is it possible that we could condition that, or is that, are we stretching the boundaries of what we can ask for at this point? It would be quite nice if we could ask for that. Hannah, do you think we could?
The applicant's nodding at me, so I think we could add that condition.
We will condition that. Thank you very much. Good question. Yeah. Well, I'm a bit reluctant to put the applicant on the spot because I don't really want to put him on the spot to make up an answer that later can't be delivered. So I think we will condition it and we will leave it to you to negotiate what would be pleasing to the housing enabling team, because they're the key people here. I'd rather do it that way. That we would one of the affordable to be wheelchair or to be accessible. And we'll delegate to you to discuss which one involving the housing enabling team. Lovely, thank you very much. Thank you. Any further questions, Carol Jones? Councillor Fry.
Thank you. Disappointing on the renewables. 5 properties fitted with solar panels, and I've yet to see a low carbon gas boiler.
We've covered that.
Is there anything going to be done? Can we have more solar panels fitted, or is renewable water going to be recovered at all and used again? Rainwater.
Have we any? Can we? Presumably, you have negotiated the number of solar arrays that you think is appropriate. Can we up that? Obviously, we like the more the merrier.
More than 5 units will be fitted with PVs. It's southeast to southwest facing will all be fitted with 4 kilowatt photovoltaics, as mentioned in the report.
I have solar panels on mine. I am east-west facing, and it charges the battery during the day.
Okay. Yes, Hannah, would you like to come in? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The use of solar arrays will become more prevalent because through building regulations, gas boilers being phased out, and to use them, we need to compensate with renewables. So that's why you're seeing more of this through planning submissions. We don't have the planning policy at the moment to insist on solar panels on roofs, but the applicant has shown through the sustainability statement that they will be incorporating these measures into the development. So I think we can take some comfort that through building regulations, these matters are getting addressed.
Yes.
I think Councillor mentioned water efficiency.
Yes.
In our local plan policy for climate change, we do have a requirement for the incorporation of water efficiency measures. So it would be possible to put on a condition that requires a scheme for the submission of water efficiency measures, and that is underpinned by our local plan policy at the present day.
Would that cover water, rainwater recycling and using of that? Because that can go into the
absolutely. So it could be rain, it could be water butts, or it could be efficiency measures in the house, such as home codes that goes beyond building regs or something like that. They'd have to demonstrate what the scheme was. We don't have to be that prescriptive at that stage. We have to submit a scheme to satisfy the condition.
Can we condition that?
Yeah, yes, please. Well, we'll come back to discussion, but yes, it's on the list.
What about ground source or air source heating to do away with the boilers altogether? We don't need to be fitting.
We haven't got the policy. You know this, Councillor Fry, well, we have not yet got policy to do that, and in any case, that's kind of we jumping the gun a bit. When we have policy that backs that up, we can be as fierce as you would all like to be on that. Thank you very much. Councillor Penfold, any questions?
No, thank you, Chairman. My question's already been answered.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. I have one question myself. The landscaping, condition 6, the landscaping trees that die within 5 years to be replaced. I just wonder if we could change that condition to 10 years. With the current very uncertain summers that we have, 5 years is no longer. I personally, I would like 10 years to become our default position going forward, because 5 years isn't enough time now to know that a tree is going to survive. So if we could just change that condition, it's from 5 to 10, that would be helpful. If there are no more questions, we'll now move to debate, and I will, in my usual way, I will start with the local members. Councillor Fotheringham, would you like to kick us off? Thank you very much, as a Gillingham member.
Fotheringham, Gillingham and the villages. It's no point in harking back, but members will remember that I haven't been supportive of any development on this field since day one. Having said all that, I think the 106 agreement reached so that the town council could have the larger field, in fact, the north, was very helpful. And I do feel that to a degree, the developer has done a reasonable job. But I have to say, I'm minded to support the comments of our urban design officer, who is in fact unable to support this proposal, mostly based on she would like to see more street planting. Double bank parking is another issue. My view regarding the urban design is the edge of this development. We always made an effort over the years for any development that was up against the countryside. It would come in really slowly. We'd have single-story houses around the edge, and so that it wasn't just stuck there. And I don't feel we have a soft edge to any of this development. In fact, the larger houses, the 4 and 5 bedrooms, are the ones that are right on the edge, and I don't like it, and unfortunately I won't be able to support it. Thank you
very much. Councillor Rideout, would you like to come in next?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. As you've heard from my colleague, Councillor Fotheringham, this application has been very controversial, and but it's before us now. I take on board Gillingham Town Council's concerns, reallotments and highway safety, but as we've heard, they have sort of been sorted now. This site was always in the SLA, and in the emerging local plan, it's also identified. I can read from the report, and I know that a lot of consultation has gone on. The case office has done a lot of hard work trying to bring this up to an acceptable standard, this proposal. I take on board the urban design and landscape officer's comments that they were unable to support, but I also see that lots of amendments have been made to help, especially with the eastern boundary reinforcements. I welcome the applicants that they would like to, if the town council are willing to plant fruit trees in the field. I think that's very good. And I know that more trees have been negotiated to be planted on site. There's a good selection of bird boxes, and I'm really pleased there's some swift boxes going up as well. My initial concern with all this was the setting on the Wyke Conservation Area, especially the views through from Thorngrove to Wyke. I believe these have been mitigated to as best they can, just to secure those views, because they are very important. The whole site has got good tree boundary, so it is fairly well screened. On site, with detail, one of my concerns is the boundary treatment backing onto the wildlife area. That's plots 1, 3, 4, 5 and 7. I know it's post and wire boundary treatment where there's vegetation. I just got a concern how that is going to work out, because previous experience, that sort of area can become a bit of a dumping ground. I know the case officer has mentioned about some mesh, weld mesh, fence to fence that area off. I'm not too sure about that, how that's actually going to look. That's just one of my minor concerns. Otherwise, on the whole, looking at the elevations, I think actually it's quite a nice design. Good design, good materials. So I think on balance, I think we've gone as far as we can with this scheme. I think it's an acceptable scheme. I mean, I've never was happy with the quantum of development, 80 houses, but on the whole, I think we've just about got there.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. You're absolutely right, of course, that this has been a controversial site all along, and we are very aware on this committee that there are significant number of residents who would have preferred to see nothing at all on this site. But today we are where we are because we dealt with all of that when we gave it permission at outline, and you know, but I just want to acknowledge that we do realise that there were residents who would rather have seen nothing at all here. Anybody else got any comments that they would like to make? You've gone very, yes, Councillor Heatley.
There's quite a lot I don't like about this development, and I feel with the local residents that it is too suburban, too abruptly on the edge of the countryside. But it seems to me, I fear, that this is just an inevitable consequence of trying to put that many houses on that site. That passes solid. We're in paragraph 11 territory. I don't think we really have any alternative other than to accept.
Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, I think we are where we are. I'm pleased that Councillor Rideout has acknowledged, because I think we should acknowledge the fact that a good deal of work has gone in by case officers to get a design that is at least this good. I'm not sitting here saying that I think it's brilliant, but I think that it is. A lot of work has gone into getting a design that is better than it might have been. And we don't always see designs of this quality in this committee, do we? So I think we have to acknowledge that. We are where we are. Has anybody got anything else they would like to say, or are we ready to move for a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Fry.
I note comments on Mr. Briggs, who spoke earlier about the density of the housing, and I think that there is a balance to be had between what is already there at 4 houses to the acre, over 10 houses to the acre. I think the compromise, this isn't perfect by a long way, but it's already been approved for 80 houses there, so our hands are largely tied from that point of view. Could they look better? Yes, they could. Can they do more? Yes, they can. And I'd like to think that whatever the outcome, that potentially the developers do work towards that, but I, at the moment, can see no reason why to refuse that. In the grand scheme of things, it is what it is, as they say.
Quite right, absolutely. Before I move to ask for a proposer and seconder, could I just go back to the boundary treatment of the wildlife area, because you've reminded me that that was one of the things that it wouldn't hurt to just clarify that we've done as much as we can on that. I appreciate you very clearly said that it's not designed for deer, it's designed for small mammals, so we have to understand that. As a gardener, I think I would be rather relieved that there aren't deer coming up the back of my garden, but that's they are delightful creatures, of course. The boundary treatment then for that area.
So there were concerns about the security of these properties here, as well as those of Freem Way, if this wildlife corridor was going to be introduced. So it is now proposed to put what's called weld mesh cladding green powder coated fencing, which you quite often see around school premises.
I know. Yeah.
Which will blend in with the landscaping, going off the gable end of plot number 1 here and finishing at the gable end of plot number 7 in this location. So it won't be prominent in the street scene, and we believe that's an appropriate way of addressing security, as well as allowing wildlife to migrate through that corridor.
Yeah.
Details will have to be submitted, as well as maintain access to maintain that strip as well by the management company.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer everybody's questions about that? Could I ask then, I need a proposer. Are you proposing, Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, I'll propose with the conditions that we already.
Right, so that's good, thank you. So the extra conditions, in addition, the additional conditions we have, the first one with regard to removing the permitted development rights. Then we have a second further extra condition with regard to water efficiency. These are not written in detail, these conditions, but I think we know where we're going. And a third condition that at least one of the affordable properties should be among the wheelchair accessible properties. Those are our three. So are you proposing with those three? Could I ask for a seconder, please? And 10 years instead of my own, 10 years instead of 5 years, exactly. Yeah, seconded by Councillor. Right, without more ado, we will put the matter to the vote. There's all those in favour of allowing this with the extra conditions, please raise your hands. All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving swiftly on to our, I'll keep talking while members of the public leave, to agenda item 7. This is POUT 2022 04243. And this is to demolish existing industrial buildings and build 47 houses. Now, this is an outline only at this stage to determine access. And you will have read in the report that there's a fallback on this one, which is very relevant to this application, and the officer will explain in his report. Jim, it's you again, your report. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this application was referred to committee following objection from Oakwood Fitzpaine Parish Council. The reasoning they set out in section 9 of the report, there are several reasons to do with highways, sustainability of the location, accessibility, and loss of employment land. Site is edged red. This is the site of Wessex Park Homes former production facility, like static caravans, I believe. Prior to that, it was a brickwork, so it's a brownfield site. The access would be from Shillingstone Lane, and that is the only point that's sought to clarify what its outline application. So it's just access alone, although indicative plans have been submitted to demonstrate how 47 units on this site. To the south, the site adjoins Pound Lane, which offers an opportunity for footpath links to Oakwood Fitzpaine, following upgrading of the rights of way in that location. Planning history of the site, as you'll see in the planning history section, is quite convoluted. You'll notice that there's a number of applications for approval procedure, which has effectively given the applicant their fallback position to convert the buildings that are currently on the site to dwellings. So that's the starting point, that we could accept that the site could be developed for 47 dwellings. Ordinarily, we might not support this kind of development in this location. Yeah, so the site is located, is identified here by the red line. It's almost equidistant between Oakwood Fitzpaine here and Shillingstone, slightly closer to Oakwood Fitzpaine. And it has to be said that links to Oakwood Fitzpaine are slightly easier in terms of non-motorised transport, because the site will eventually link into Pound Lane from this direction here, which is quite well surfaced for much of its line, although the quality of the surface deteriorates towards the east, which will need to be enhanced. This slide shows the site in this location here, again, between Shillingstone and Oakwood Fitzpaine, and it shows its relationship to the AONB, which is identified by the green hatched area, which kind of joins the southern boundary of the site, but kind of wraps around the whole area. Part of the reason for the officers supporting this is that we believe a visual enhancement can accrue to the site through a comprehensive and cohesive redevelopment of the site, rather than trying to convert the ad hoc arrangement of former industrial buildings on the site. So that's one of the factors that weighs in its favour. Let's take you through a few slides, photographs of the site. So this is the Shillingstone Lane, showing the main access to the site. You'll see some of the buildings in this location here. This site shows the secondary access into the site, which will be stopped up, or they'll be made accessible to pedestrians. This location here. This shows the site is typically hard standard throughout much of the red line area, and some of the kind of ad hoc arrangements of buildings which have incrementally been established on the site. The site is actually it's quite recessed into the ground. This picture was taken from the eastern boundary of the site at an elevated position. So this area may have been excavated during the course of brickwork. So on the site, I don't know, but you can see it will be quite well recessed into the surrounding landscape, which again would help mitigate the visual impact of the proposal on the wider countryside. Although we believe when the reserved matters eventually come forward, that the appearance of the site will be enhanced from a good quality. Taken from the southern boundary, it's a little bit more open to the south, and this is close to the AONB boundary. The area in the foreground won't be developed. That will be an area of open space associated with the development, and will provide footpath links through from the site to Pound Lane. This shows the line of Pound Lane itself. This is looking towards Oakwood Lane, where the surface is quite well. It's quite good. It's compacted gravel in this location, but it becomes tarmac further in this direction. Although admittedly, as you can see, in looking towards the east, the surface does deteriorate. So if walking is to be encouraged, works will have to be done to enhance that footpath link to encourage walking. This is the illustrative plan of the site, which shows housing development limited to the existing footprint and hard standing of the existing employment site, and the area to the south of the site to come forward, retaining this tree screen, which is in situ, and also provide links through the site towards Pound Lane. So the application is recommended for approval, bearing in mind the applicant's fallback position, because the 47 units currently have permission to come forward as conversion. Again, we're failing the housing delivery test, so it will provide a valuable 47 new homes to the council's housing land supply, and it represents a good opportunity to redevelop the brownfield site to enhance visual amenity. This is all notwithstanding the fact that an employment site will be lost. We don't feel substantiate a reason for refusal on that basis, bearing in mind the site hasn't been operational for previous appeals on employment sites that that have been allowed. So the recommendation is to grant, subject to the conditions outlined in the report and to completion of the Section 106 agreement, to ensure that the other benefits and contributions come forward, including the full quota of affordable housing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Jim, again, Steve, have you any comments you want to make on this one, or you'll just take questions when they're...
Questions, if I may.
Yes, okay. If you have any questions on highway matters, address them to Steve when your turn comes. So, public speakers, we're going to hear from Adam Bennett, the agent. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors. As you've heard, the site comprises a redundant Class C light industrial site of some fairly substantial size, which has been consistently marketed now since 2014, with no interest expressed from operators. This is a previously developed site and it should be reused. However, it's clear that this is not going to be for employment purposes. National policy is quite clear that a positive approach should be taken to finding alternative use of land where it can otherwise meet other identified needs, including in this case specifically to meet housing needs. Council has accepted that the existing buildings are capable of being converted to 47 residential dwellings by way of the prior approval permission process. And proposals before you, however, provide the opportunity to do somewhat better. The scheme will deliver 47 well-designed dwelling houses of a mix of size and tenure in an attractive landscape setting, a community. Your officers accept that the council has been unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and it's fallen short in respect of housing delivery. The application site has always formed part of the committed housing supply for 47 homes when the council has given evidence at recent appeals. Officers accept the site is suitable and it should be delivered for housing, but this scheme presents the opportunity to do better and to deliver a scheme which reflects its setting. The development will not diminish the countryside gap between Oakwood, Fitzpaine or Shillingston. It's already built upon, it's previously developed. Removing the large sheds and replacing them with smaller built forms of local materials, positively integrated with the public and the private green spaces you've seen on the plans, will clearly deliver an enhancement to local visual amenity and landscape character. The existing employment operation was significant in scale, with permission remaining for a much larger factory building on the site. As your highways officers have identified, the impacts both in terms of number of vehicular movements and also vehicular size would be potentially lesser from a residential use than could arise from a lawful use of the site as it sits. There will be a net reduction in impact, not an increase. Following the direction of national policy in this case, as we've explored with officers, there's an opportunity to improve local footpath connectivity, and we've agreed a package of enhancements which will be funded by the development to those footpath links. It's accepted by national policy that opportunities to access public transport does vary between urban and rural areas, but in this case, this should not restrict development that can otherwise support the vibrancy and vitality of the rural community, including services and facilities. The reuse of previously developed land is actively encouraged, and it should be done in preference to use of greenfield land. This is an excellent opportunity to make use of a redundant site with a scheme that complies with local and national policy. And I commend your officer's detailed report in this case, and I ask that you please support the recommendation to grant. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Bennett. Unfortunately, Oakwood Fitzpaine Parish Council were not able to get their application to speak to us in time, so they're not able to speak today. But I just for the anybody listening, just to reassure everybody, but that of course the Parish Council's comments have been on the website and have been available to everybody. So the committee members are aware of their views. First of all, do you want to make any comment on what you've heard so far, or shall we move straight to questions? No? Good. Okay, I'll start at this end then. Councillor Fry, have you got any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Can you just clarify the situation with the prior approval, please? My understanding of that, and please put me right if I am, they've got prior approval to build 47 dwellings in the current buildings that are there. So they have to be built inside what is there already.
Convert them,
correct?
yes,
Yeah,
it is.
By
Yeah.
way of conversion only, yeah.
Sorry, microphone. Oh, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have permission essentially to convert the buildings as you see on this plan here to 47 dwellings.
Is that what they call Class Q?
No, it's
MA.
not.
It's industrial, not
Okay.
That's MA.
industrial.
It ties our hands in a very similar way to Class Q. So it's yes, please come in.
Thank you. Fry, you raised a really good question about the fallback position, which is what you're sort of considering. It's a material consideration in this case because there has been these prior approval applications to convert the existing buildings from industrial use into residential units. But you're completely right, that wasn't to erect dwellings, that was to convert the existing buildings that were there. So it's a material consideration, the fallback, but how much weight you attach to it is down to you in your consideration now. So it's a material consideration that forms part of your planning consideration, basically, because there has been a conversion, approval route to convert dwellings. It's not a full plan application, but it does give permission to use the buildings as dwellings. It's a material consideration in your wider considerations that Jim set out in his report. So it's one of the things that weighs in favour of it, but there's other consideration you need to consider in the planning mix.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you just point out to us where the village boundaries are and is this in any local plan at all, in any form at all?
It's a carry on. Yes.
It's not an allocated site. You can see it's in this location here in relation to the village envelopes, Oakwood, Fitzpaine, in this location here and here. So it is admittedly an unsustainable location, but the fallback position as far as officers are concerned is weighs heavily in favour of supporting the proposal.
The point being that it is a brownfield site. It already exists, and that's but that's also quite in the plan balance. It's not a greenfield site, which would be. I think we'd all know where we were if it was. It's a brownfield site. It already exists, and it has the fallback. But yes, but
it's an opportunity for. I think a consideration is the quality of the environment that would be produced through converting the buildings compared to this layout, the indicative layout that shows much better levels of amenity, much better layout. And that in recent case law has been something that's been material to the consideration as well, that you can attach weight to. So you can think about what would be achieved through the conversion, through the prior approval route, and what would be achieved now through this alternative scheme.
Yes, so we're being offered this scheme as the phrase that so this is an improvement, a visual enhancement over what would be available through the fallback position. So that again, it's yes, Jim.
I should say, as this is a planning application, this is also subject to Section 106 agreements for
yes,
contributions, etc., which the prior approval process
would not. Yes, yes. So we're looking at not just the principle of the thing, which we can consider, but also the balancing up what would be available under the fallback position and what would be and the considerable advantages we're being presented with this as offering advantages over the fallback position. So those are the two things we're weighing up. So yes. Good. Councillor Jones, no questions? Councillor Pothcary, any questions at this point?
Thank you. Actually following on, I think, Councillor Fry's questions. It's good to see brownfield site being reused. I can see all the advantages of this proposal. I'm concerned about contaminated land on page 51. I'm struggling with the paragraph, to be honest with you. the conditional approaches, abusive approach, etc. I welcome the 40% affordable homes. What I'd like to know is there any risk, and officers will know what I'm talking about here, what I'm referring to,
Yes.
has been found in the past, we've given consent. The contaminated land turned out to be worse than anybody expected, and we've ended up with no approval. So I just wanted to know the position and perhaps the risk of this.
The exact same question I asked Councillor Pothecary at the briefing. It comes to the nub of the thing. Could you give the best answer that is available to that very, very pertinent question?
Yeah, there is a condition proposed which requires full investigation to be made in terms of what contamination lies under this site, which could be significant, being a form of brickworks. So we don't entirely know what. And unfortunately, there is a risk that that may prove to be a substantial expense to the applicant, which may affect the viability of the scheme in respect to the reserve matter. We don't know it until that contamination survey is undertaken and we know the full extent of what lies beneath and how much that might cost to remediate. We can't say what will happen in future as far as the contributions are concerned. But there is a, yeah.
But the point is, it would have to come back. This is the outline planning application, and the full application would have to come back to this committee. And if the affordable housing had disappeared through issues of viability, that comes back to this committee, and then we would have some choices, I guess, in front of us.
That proved to be the case, and you'd have the opportunity to turn it down if you felt that affordable housing wasn't going to come forward.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's
Surely
very high risk.
Given consent for outline, that consent's been given, and we have limited options once that consent has been given.
Well, no, because outline permission will always be subject to the 106. So if the 106 have changed significantly, but Hannah, yes.
No, just said what I was going to say. It would be secured through the Section 106 agreement on this application at the outline stage. Any variation from that, any reduction in public benefit, couldn't be a delegated matter. It'd have to come back to the planning committee, and it'd have to have full evidence of why that 40% could now no longer be achieved. So it'd have to be evidenced. We wouldn't just take it that there is contamination. What is the contamination? We'd look at the viability through a viability assessment to know that for certain, and then it would be up to committee to attach weight to that viability assessment. And if it's the fact that the lack of affordable makes it then no longer acceptable, that would still be open to committee. But that's sort of preempting what may happen at this point in time. We have a developer that wants to secure policy compliant 40% affordable, and that will be in the 106 agreement.
Thank you very much.
Very valid concerns.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we are far more used to considering applications on greenfield sites in this committee, because we're the North Dorset committee, and we very much prefer to see applications on brownfield sites. But when they're brownfield sites, this is the flip side of that they are likely to be sites that come with some risk. So yes, it's a very good, well-made point. Councillor James, do you have any questions?
Yes, the footpaths are going to be improved, but how far is it to walk from this site to Oxford Street Pave?
Oh my.
Approximately 1.2 kilometres from the site to the centre of Oakford Fitzpaine. So Shillingstone's a less obvious route because it's all uphill, and the condition of the footpath in that direction is poor. It's further to walk, but Oakford Fitzpaine 1.2 kilometres.
It's perfectly walkable for the families that will be living here.
Yeah, you'd have to go along Pound Lane. The footpaths will be improved to Pound Lane and to offer a route for families walking. It won't be accessible to everybody, but it will be improved as far as the applicant can, and in conjunction with the Rights of Way Authority.
Concerned about people without cars being isolated.
Do you want to comment on that? I think it would be fair to say that it would be very difficult to live in this site without a car.
yeah, it's accepted that there's going to be a certain amount of carbon travel from the site to the village centres, particularly Shillingstone, I should think, because that's where the more larger stores are. But Open Fitzbane is certainly walkable for future occupiers.
Yeah.
But we're saying then, really, families need 2 cars, because if one person goes off to work in a car, either the rest of the family is left behind, which is very.
Any more questions? No. Councillor Rideout.
Questions, Chairman?
Thank you. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Val, for asking what I was going to ask. My only problem with any development now, any new development that comes forward, is Wessex water reports and where's the wastewater going to go? 372,000 spills into our rivers and waterways this year again. Oh, well, that was 2021. It's more this year, I do believe. Wessex water report doesn't seem to be there. And I wonder what mitigation they're taking for nitrates, even though it doesn't affect the Stour. And what they're going to do about stopping the overflows into the rivers, because we can't cope with it. It's not fish are dying.
Wessex Water.
Wessex, as far as foul sewage is concerned, it's an outline. Goes forward for foul sewage for this. As far as surface water is concerned, you'll see there's an attenuation basin in the northwest corner of the site, and it will be attenuated, and there are conditions proposed which require full surface water details to be submitted at the reserve matters stage. So that will be just that point.
Actually, it's a concern of mine. Real fine that my grandchildren are going to start bathing in the river and pick up some horrible disease. So it's something that I think we all need to take seriously, because this is becoming an ever-present problem. Nothing's been done about it.
I would agree with that. And every house we build, now it adds to the foul water, and all over the country we're building more and more houses without improving the sewage system. A slightly bigger question than one that we can address on this committee, but very well, the point very well made. Councillor Heatley.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to try and get a better understanding of the fallback position. It's conversion of those buildings we saw in the picture into residential units of some kind or another. Now, to be frank, looking at that, I found that difficult to imagine. What would that be likely to consist of? Are you restrained to the footprints as exist at the moment? Things like cladding allowed? Can you change the window positions, the doors, everything else? Can you put new roofs on? What happens to the ground around those units? We're being offered a comparison, but I can't grasp quite what we're comparing it with.
Right.
The proposal would allow a certain amount of alteration to those buildings in terms of external materials. They would be fenestrated with windows, doors, etc. The roof could be changed and clad with more appropriate or aesthetically pleasing materials on the external elevations. Some of the land around these buildings you see here could be made available to provide parking, external curtilage for future occupiers, etc. So it isn't beyond the realms of possibility to provide garden areas, for instance, for these units here in this location here. Admittedly, it wouldn't be the best form of development, which is why officers are supporting the proposal to redevelop the site, because it offers the chance for a more comprehensive and cohesive form of development that might be, well, would be more attractive in the local landscape than the existing buildings that we have. So that's part of the reason why we're supporting it. But they could be converted or not in the best. It wouldn't be the best use of the land as far as we officers are concerned in terms of forming a a residential environment.
But that permission has already been given.
Yeah, the permission is extant, so they can go ahead and do
Right.
that.
Okay, thank you. And for 47 homes?
Yes, that is the fallback position, 47 units. Yeah.
So, yes. So it might be that, and of course, we're only looking at outline at this stage, so it might be that when it came back to us, it was fewer than 47, but we have to assume that when it comes back to us with the reserved matters, it's 47 homes on this site.
Yeah, can I just?
Yes.
This application is actually a second application following on from a refusal, and the quantum of development has been reduced down because there was concerns it wasn't in line with the fallback position.
Yes.
So the applicant did amend this scheme to bring it in line with what has been granted through the prior approval. I think one of the main benefits you can see from the alternative planning route is reduction in hard surfacing across the site. We've got at the moment a sea of hard surfacing, very little open space dedicated individually or communally to the conversion. And in this case, you've got a large area that was actually going to be, you can see in the lower part of the site, it was going to be dwellings, is now providing for open space. And you've got individual gardens for each dwelling. This is obviously only indicative, but it illustrates how dwellings could be developed on this plot. I would caution against saying it's going to be fewer dwellings outline. I would take it that it is going to be 47. Up to figure is a little bit of a red herring. It really does mean 47. So I wouldn't like for you to think that we can reduce it very much, but it does demonstrate through this indicative layout that Jim has worked through with the applicant that it can quite comfortably be accommodated on the site and provide much better amenity and open space compared with the fallback position.
So the position seems to me, committee, we're in. I think that we can see perfectly clearly that this indicative layout would be an improvement on the fallback position. What we're struggling to swallow, I think, it's sticking in our craw a little bit, is being presented with the fallback position as a fait accompli, but that's where we are. That's the find ourselves in. So the fallback position exists, even though we might find that we're sceptical about how that came about, but it is what it is. And this would clearly be better than the fallback position. I think we have established well enough that it's no longer likely to be viable. It's never going to be viable as an employment site going forward because that has been tested. So that's the choice we're facing. So has anybody got any, just Councillor Jones, then Councillor Bryan?
Current site as it is looks dreadful. So this is definitely an improvement. My real worry is that I know this area. In Oakford Fitzpaine, you've got one tiny little shop.
Yeah, exactly.
15% of people don't have a car. Certainly, I know the problems we have locally with people without transport trying to access services. I just think on the affordable front, I mean, because if you've got market forces will determine that if you're going to buy a house at full value, you'll probably have a car, that's fine. But the affordable content, I worry about people being stranded without any access to services. And that's, but I don't really know what we can do about that. But that's a real problem we have in our area already. And I can see 40%, 18 houses. If you've got 15% of those that don't have a car, it's a problem because they cannot get anywhere at all.
That's true. There's no buses. On the other hand, it has to be said that there are affordable houses in most of our villages that would be in exactly the same position. And it is, I guess we have to hope that the registered, so the social landlords only put people into those houses. No, I know that, but that's enough. It's not a reason for not wanting the affordable housing there. But I think this is a very problematic site because I think you said very early on that up for the fallback position, it's not a site that we would be at all comfortable about putting homes in because it's frankly not sustainable. but we are where we are. But that's it. Councillor Fry, you wanted to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm struggling with this being outside the village boundaries. I'm struggling with it not being in any village plan. I'm struggling with the loss of industrial land that is needed elsewhere, although this has been empty, I accept, for 10 years. We do gain 47 homes, which are needed. They're likely to be better looking than the units that are currently there at the moment. In fact, they can't be any worse. It would be hard to do that. Yeah, I just feel that we're going against everything we're taught and trained to do in all the stuff we do in having to approve this one, but we are where we are. First question I've got, is there any chance of a consultation around the bus routes being amended to fit this?
That's not a planning matter. There aren't, no, it would be not in terms of the, putting housing here will, in the long term, will help to make the case why North Dorset needs a better local bus service, but that's, I wouldn't want to buy a house here in the hope that I was going to get a bus service soon. Yes. Councillor Rideout.
Linda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. I've listened to colleagues and I am in total agreement. This is a really difficult one for us. It's unusual, it's unique, but I've got to bear in mind this is a brownfield site basically, and what could happen under the fallback position I think would just look awful, to put it bluntly. So I think reluctantly we will have to approve this application.
Is that proposed? Thank you very much. Councillor Stella Jones, you had your hand up to speak.
Yes, you mentioned that I'm still very concerned about the rural isolation here. And you mentioned that we put affordable houses into villages, but they are established villages. We are now looking at something completely new. We are going to put families here knowing that they're going to be isolated.
Yeah.
Isolation causes all sorts of problems for families. And I'm really concerned that we're going to end up here with all sorts of really big issues, because most families have one car, even if they are affordable, but not two cars. And it's essential that families here will probably need two cars, and they won't have it.
Can you comment on what the housing enabling team have said about the possibility of affordable housing here? Have they made positive comment? I think that's such.
Yeah, they supported the scheme fully, although they haven't specifically commented on the isolated nature of the site. They've simply supported the scheme because it's going to deliver, well, at this stage, it's going to deliver the quantum of affordable housing. The local plan looks to deliver on sites such as these.
I've had a proposer. Do I have a seconder?
Could I just make a
Yeah,
comment?
of course you can.
Thank you. My concern is under the reserved matters, and that's a significant number of red roofs, because obviously that's going to make.
This is the outline one.
Oh, right, okay,
yeah,
fine.
It's all right, yeah.
I'll say it later then.
Yeah. Councillor Heatley.
Yes, I just want to explore this, but I'm wondering whether we're being led too much by the fallback position. I think there's a possibility that the fallback position wouldn't be viable. I don't, people are going to want to buy places in this place. Is what it's going to cost to get that surrounding land sorted out going to be too great, and so on and so forth. So I'm doing a little bit of a thought experiment. Supposing the sort of position wasn't there, what then would we think about it? We have a site that we wouldn't normally look at from the point of view of sustainable positioning and so on and so forth. But equally, we're still in the housing test position, the paragraph 11.
Yes.
And it may be that we've got to accept it.
It is a redundant brownfield site, and we like brownfield sites for housing. Yes.
Although I'm beginning to think the fallback is a bit of a red herring, I think anyway we're probably stuck with it.
that's very helpful. Moves us on very nicely. Hannah, on the forward. I mean, because the point about the full book, it's there and it's a material consideration, but it's up to us to think how much weight we give to it. Yeah.
Exactly, Chair. Thank you. I think I completely understand, Councillor Heat, what you're saying. It's how realistic is the fallback, but we have to caution on that because the courts have quite recently held that for a fallback to exist that you can attach some weight to, it has to be probable, but not. It has to be probable that it can happen. So we've got for approval, but not a certainty. So I think sometimes we've got sort of councils got tied up with is it a legitimate fallback position? And I think that's where they've come unstuck because quite clearly in this case, we do have a prior approval for the conversion to those units. So it is a material consideration. But as Chair has rightly pointed out, how much weight committee attached to that fallback position is down to you as the decision maker.
We are agonising over this. I think I need to bring this now this to a vote. I've had a proposer. Can I have? Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. You'd like to second it. Are we ready to move for vote? This is a tricky one, but we're going to have to decide. And unless anybody else has got anything else they want to say or ask, are we ready to move for vote? We probably know as much as we're ever going to know about this one, right? Okay, all those then and that's the proposer and seconder as outlined in the officer's report. All those in favour, please raise your hands. 3, 4. All those against? And any abstentions? No, that is carried. And thank you very much, committee. That was a difficult decision, and I think you've given it a good airing. Moving swiftly on, unless you feel you need a break. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a 10-minute comfort break. welcome back.
The only thing that
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you very much for that short break. Moving on now to agenda item 8. This is planning application number PFUL 2022-05382. Now, this is a full application this time for an extension and service area to Unit 48 on the Piddlehinton Enterprise Park. And it's before us at the request of the Parish Council. Steve Banks, Senior Planning Officer, is going to give his report. Steve, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as already outlined, the application is for the construction of an extension, parking area and service area. The extension, once we get there, just for the future reference, measures approximately 13 metres wide, 23 metres deep and 8 metres high. This site shows the location plan, which is on the edge of the actual enterprise park. This slide shows it on Google on the kind of the southeast corner, lower down on the site. It is worth noting that the top of the site, the north and east top part, is about 115 metres above Ordnance Datum. The lower part of the site, which is the southwestern edge, is 78 metres above Ordnance Datum, and the application site is located at about 95 metres AOD. This slide shows the site outlined in red, the bottom right-hand corner of the site, and the green and pink lines are rights of way, and the yellow that's creeping in the top corner, that's the AONB. And this slide shows at a larger scale the AONB area to the top shaded, and also the paths again. You can see that the application site is not within the AONB, close-ish, but definitely not within the AONB. This is the plans of the existing building. Previously approved extension can be seen, which is projecting towards us in the south elevation. And this slide shows the proposed extension, shaded in red in the bottom right hand corner. The block plan also shows the parking and service area. These are the elevations. Can be seen the southeast elevation, which is the side which would obviously be facing southeast. That's the larger of the views that one would gain of the proposal. This is a photograph of the site, looking up towards it, and the extension would be always proposed to construct it about there where the cursor is, coming out in the same projections, the extension further along. That photo is taken next to the existing building, looking down the hill to a quite a large building at a lower level. And this is taken looking from the other side. It's worth noting the building to the left, the red brick building, but of a certain size, not too dissimilar to the existing. This is taken from lower down the hill where the large building was referred to, and it can be seen the smaller units that do exist on the site. This photograph is taken from the access just as the just as one would enter the employment site, the grey building, that's the building which is the subject of the application. This photograph shows a large building which is on the ridge of the site, and you can see it's definitely larger scale than the resultant proposed building. This is slightly set back. Another large building can be seen on the left-hand side, again at a higher level than the application site. And that photograph further around again shows another large building. And then the key issues in summary is the impact that the proposal would have on the character of the area and also on highways. It is worth noting that if it was considered necessary, if councillors were minded to approve the application, that a condition relating to lighting could be imposed on any permission. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Thank you very much indeed. So we have public speakers now. First of all, Martin Summers, the applicant.
Good afternoon. I am Martin Summers, the owner of Unit 48 and MD to Polyfoam Limited and Imsys Limited. Polyfoam Limited can convert from 100% recyclable material or recycling packaging solutions such as edge protection for protecting items whilst in transit or stock. A typical customer would be Wren Kitchens, who ship by courier or their own transport thousands of items weekly, are prone to damage if not handled and packaged correctly. We are a local business who moved back to Dorset in 2001, employed 12 staff, and the extension would allow us to expand further, employing 7 further staff. Currently, we have 2 units on the park, Unit 48, the one in question, and Unit 25, which is further around the other side of the park, which are about half a mile apart, making a round trip for the employees of around about a mile. They move between the 2 units consistently throughout the day, which has an impact on them and petrol and driving and so on and so forth. The extension and consolidation into Unit 48 would make us considerably more efficient, profitability would improve and more cost effective. We feel we have considered the new extension plans and they work well with existing new developments on the park. The detailed plans will utilise the latest construction materials, consider our carbon impact, and solar panels would be installed for the electrical supply for our machinery. We manage our impact in the local community by controlling our deliveries and collections. We do this by not allowing the vehicles to enter the site only from the from the bypass, the Pillington bypass. When they leave, they're not allowed to use the local roads or go through the village or the Piddle Valley. So they have to go back out the way they sold in. The roads are arriving and leaving, yeah, okay. We work normal working hours. We use no chemicals. We have no pollutants in our materials. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. We now hear from the representative of the Parish Council, Mr. Ebden.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors. As said, my name's Chris Ebden. I'm chair of the Piddle Valley Parish Council. You'll have seen from the pictures that the Enterprise Park was formerly Piddlehindon Camp, which was a Second World War camp built to house troops in preparation for D-Day and is of local historic interest. You'll also have seen that the buildings on the higher slopes are clearly visible from roads, public rights of way and the AONB to the west and north. The Enterprise Park is the main employment site in the Piddle Valley and is a key employment site in the current local plan. The Piddle Valley neighbourhood plan supports economic development at the site through small-scale business development that takes local character and the historic value of the World War II camp into account. The Piddle Valley Parish Council and our County Councillor are against the proposed development as it is contrary to Policy 10 of our neighbourhood plan. An extension of Unit 48 was already granted and built following approval in 2009. The current application is for a significant size extension of over 70%, over 2 stories. We're concerned that the scale and design of the proposed development would have a negative impact on the character of the World War II camp, result in significant encroachment into the green area surrounding the unit, and would be to the detriment of visual amenity given its relatively elevated position. The impact of security lighting and large-scale building on the upper slopes is clearly visible from some distance away and distracts from the AONB. There's now a nocturnal glow which comes from the camp that can be seen as far away as the C12 Sherborne Road, which is in the AONB, Puddletown, and as well as the 2 main routes which descend into the valley from Charlton Down into Piddle Hinton and Surrey Hill into Piddle Trentide. The negative impact of light pollution has been raised with Dorset Council, and further development is unwelcome until current problems are resolved. Finally, there are concerns about the impact of increased traffic, both on the limited road infrastructure on the park and particularly large lorries travelling along the valley roads and through the conservation. 3 most recent planning applications for the Enterprise Park, including this one, would add an additional 94 parking spaces and 3 delivery spaces. 40 of those additional parking spaces have been approved, 50 more are pending a decision. There are no buses. Whilst the current application accounts for just 4 of those additional parking spaces and the 3 extra delivery vehicle spaces, residents are rightly concerned about increasing traffic volume and highway safety. The Parish Council are pleased that the camp provides an attractive location for businesses to establish themselves, but the neighbourhood plan recognises that the Enterprise Park is most suitable for small light industry, small office-based businesses and start-up businesses. The approval of this development we consider to be overdevelopment and contrary to the principle and the spirit of the neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Those are public speakers. I'm looking around the room to see who would like to start with questions. Councillor Heatley, do you have any questions? I can come back to you if you've none yet. No. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Chair. So there will be a significant impact on the labour forces required to run the new plant. I just wonder if there's any details on that? Details on how many people will be employed with the new building if it was?
We had seven new jobs. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Councillor Rideout, any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask that the huts themselves, I take it the host dwelling is one of those huts, the old army buildings.
Unit 48. No, it's not. No,
Right.
no.
Designation on any of those buildings?
No.
Councillor Jones, Stella Jones.
Will this become the tallest building on the site?
Definitely not, no.
Councillor Podgry.
Not sure it's relevant, but it only seems to be relevant to me. Would the applicant consider then, if this was allowed, this extension, giving up the extra site that is so complicated for his staff to?
I understood him to be saying that that was his plan, but I'm not sure that's a planning consideration. Anyway, but yes. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I do understand the intention is for the whole.
Consolidate all into, I thought I heard that's what he was saying.
It was whether it would release a smaller unit, if you see what I mean.
I do indeed, yes.
Which would perhaps Parish Council might be happy about, that's all.
Thank you, yes. No questions, Councillor Fry?
Two questions, please. If we're reminded to approve, is it possible to condition lighting to reduce the lighting so as not to add to the pollution? And the second one, can it be conditioned if we're reminded to approve that the parking spaces that are going to be actually created will be permeable so the water could be allowed to go back into the ground without runoff?
Yes, thank you. Lighting, we raised this before. Yes, we need a condition to. I appreciate that there is already considerable light pollution from this site, from all around the AONB. That's not a reason for us to add to it. Just because it's already there doesn't mean it doesn't matter. So I think we would want to do everything we can to mitigate any further light pollution and set that's a good example. Can we put a condition into that effect?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, good.
But I have got a drafted condition. I don't know if you'd like to hear the word.
We would very much like to hear it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, if you could.
Yes.
So it's a requirement for a lighting scheme to be submitted. So it'd be prior to the commencement of any development above foundation level. Details of a lighting scheme should have been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Thereafter, the lighting scheme should be installed, operated and maintained in accordance with the approved scheme, and there should be no further lighting of the development other than in accordance with the approved scheme. It'd be in the interest of the character of the area.
Yep. Thank you. That's very helpful. Good. I think we'll pop. Can we also have one for permeable surfaces to reduce water runoff? Is that a reasonable thing to ask for?
Sorry, Councillor, what was the justification for it being permeable? Just specifically, because it's not something that
we've heard from the parish council about the increase in parking spaces there. What if that means we've got to put down new surface tarmac down there? We don't want to add to the runoff and add to the issue there. From that point of view, if we are minded to agree, let's try and get it to blend in and not add further problems to the community and the environment.
What the surface that's already there presumably is tarmac.
Is anything there already?
Yeah, I think it.
Yeah, I'll find the photograph.
Yes.
We could maybe do that with a drainage condition for surface water. I'm just a bit concerned it might be too prescriptive to ask for the surfaces of the car park. I think the concern is about runoff.
Yes.
Potentially a drainage condition.
I think we'd be happy with that. Would you be happy with that? It addresses the problems. In other words, we want.
Yes, if the water from the road and the runoff goes into drainage that goes into a soakaway, so that it doesn't go into the drains and adds the impact of filling up our drains at a time when we're having heavy rainwater, which creates problems for Wessex Water. So let's try and mitigate that one.
Condition on that. We'll be happy to leave that to officers to draft that. That's helpful. Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to propose we recommend it.
You'd like to.
I would like to celebrate the success of one of our Dorset companies growing. We should do everything we can to encourage them, and I'm very happy to second.
Thank you very much. It's a nicely made point. Yes, it's always good to hear. Has anybody else got any other comments they want to make on this? Yes.
Just to agree with Councillor Fry on the highways and particularly on the parking and loading area.
Yeah.
With the highways recommendation.
Lovely, thank you. Anybody else want to make any further comment? We have to move to a vote. We've had a proposer and a seconder that we should approve this with the two added conditions for lighting and for dealing with drainage and water runoff. With those two extra conditions, all those in favour, raise your hands. Any against? No, that's excellent. That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on then to item 9, we have application PFUL 2022 07272. We're just having a changeover. I'll let you get settled, Jay.
Yes. Get the right glasses on.
Good, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a full application for a new dwelling and access at 3 St Stephen's Close in Blandford. and it's before us because of the town council objection. So Jane Green Senior Planning Officer, will give us her report. Lovely, very quick, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. So this application is for a new dwelling at 3 Stevens Close. So this should give an indication of the position of the property. It's sort of on the north-east side of Blandford. And this slide hopefully then shows a closer view of the property, which will be the number 3 Stevens Close is the right-hand side of a semi-detached pair of properties, and this would make a terrace of properties with the addition of another dwelling, and hopefully that shows the aerial photo of the same position. So the key planning considerations are the principle of development, impact on the visual amenity and the character of the area, and the impact upon the amenity of neighbouring occupiers and the future occupiers of the new property. There's no objection in principle to the proposal. It's sited within the settlement boundary of Blandford Forum, which is considered a sustainable location where new development is permitted, and it would contribute to the housing supply. So we go through subject to the other material considerations, and this slide hopefully will give a view of the existing property, the right-hand side being 3 Stevens Close, which has a attached single garage, which you can just see on the right there. So this is another view. So the inset in the slide should show the direction the photograph was taken. So you can see there's an established hedge around the property, a large holly tree at the front, and that's looking slightly to the back of the property. On the left-hand side is the existing drive to the property, and then surrounding other properties at 3 Stevens Close. And that is looking directly at the back of the property, where you can see the drive, and then the end of the cul-de-sac is where I'm standing taking this photograph here. So it's existing elevations. It's a 2-storey, 3-bedroom property with a single garage attached. Worth noting is an extant planning permission currently on this property. It has permission for a 2-storey and a single-storey extension under a household application, which will see, you can see there is a gabled extension on this side of the rear of the property, and a single-storey element here, which will attach to 3 Stevens Close here. Subject to this proposal, this is the proposed plans here. It's showing a simple gable extension. There's a gable projection at the rear to form a 2-storey element on the boundary. This is the existing property here, and this inset here should show the extent of the cartilage of the new dwelling. Proposed floor plans. The first floor shows a bedroom and a study. Effectively, that could be a small bedroom, so it could be a 2-bedroom property. The ground floor is a kitchen, lounge, WC, and hallway. This plan here probably, should show the planting scheme. You may be able to see the legend to the right, but the planting will be the 3 apple trees, T1, T3, are to be removed, but there are other trees here to be retained, including that holly tree and the hedge to be retained right round the edge of the site to afford some privacy to the garden. On this slide, I've tried to indicate that there is the sizes of the proposed gardens. There is a garden to the rear, which will measure, this is measured at midpoint, so 3 meters by 6 meters, and again, midpoint here, 5.5 by 9 meters here. This is the larger garden, which is at the front, but actually has been given quite a bit of privacy because of the retention of this hedge going around the side. This slide tries to give an idea of the sort of separation between the properties in this estate. This is the end of the cul-de-sac. This is the application property. The existing dwellings are to all sides, and that is the ones to the rear, which face the rear of the property here. The summary and recommendation are that there's no objection in principle. The property would provide for, albeit a small contribution to the housing land supply. The scheme follows pre-application advice and further advice given in a previous withdrawn application regarding concerns about design and proportions. Revisions include reducing the scale of the property seen here and improving the design. It's felt that it accords with the objectives of policy B1 of the Blandford Plus neighbourhood plan and policy 6 of the local plan. And there's a degree of space surrounding built form and similar proportions to other dwellings in the locality. It's considered the proposal would not appear incongruous in the street scene. The proposed garden space for both properties is acceptable, and due to the distance to neighbouring properties, it is considered there is no adverse impact upon neighbouring amenity. So whilst I note the Blandford Forum Town Council objection with regard to overdevelopment, a reduction of garden amenity, which is the reason for the application being brought to this committee, it's considered the proposal is not dissimilar in size and scale to the extant permission for the 2-storey extension. And given the revisions made to the design and scale, there's no harm to the occupants of St Stephen's Close or future occupiers of the proposed property. And the recommendation is therefore to grant, subject to conditions as set out in the officer report.
Thank you very much. We have no public speakers, so we can move straight to any questions that you might have for Jane. Questions for clarification? Yeah. Yes, Councillor Bright.
Thank you for the presentation. Parking, is that sustainable there? It looks as if the house has suffered possibly at the expense of creating more parking. The car looked in a generous spot there. What about visitors in the area?
So the proposal will see this existing driveway. I think the garage isn't probably big enough anyway to house a modern car. So the proposed property will see the parking on the driveway. Not forming part of this application because it's not in the red line, is proposed 2 parking spaces at the front of the existing dwelling. That's most probably permitted development in any case. There is an informative on the any potential permission to remind the applicant to ensure that it's permitted development.
Can you go to the aerial view showing the car?
Yeah, of course.
Please.
Now, there was a better one that showed the
car in the driveway.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that just seems to me that
But the drive already exists, does it?
The drive already exists to serve the existing dwelling, yes.
It seems to me that the house has been quarter of that corner of the house has been sacrificed for the parking space of it.
Yes, we just to remind you that of course we don't redesign an application.
No, I get that, but
this is the application as it is, and it's either acceptable or not. I agree. You could probably have made it different and better. Yes, Councillor Penfold first.
Thank you, Chairman. Could you just go back to the plan before that? Because I just wanted to see if that was implemented, where the access would be, the rear access for number 3.
So which plan would you like to see?
The one you just had up
Yes.
just a second
Yes.
ago. Go back to just where you were. Right, yes.
Where is the the rear? How would the rear access go for number 3 if this was implemented?
There wouldn't be an access for number 3. The access would be at the front.
Only the front.
Yeah, so if you can see the two vehicles at the front,
Thank you.
that is in the blue line, so within the ownership of the applicant, but not within this application.
Thank you. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. The 2 cars that are shown there in the front of number 3.
Yeah.
Is that existing parking?
The 2 vehicles at the
front of number 3.
Shown there.
that doesn't currently exist. The existing property.
Right. I didn't think it did either. So they're gonna have to make a drive to put that in.
Yeah, that's not within this planning application. No.
So the application referred to the additional parking. It actually wasn't in the red line of the of the plans, so we can't assume. But it could be done as permitted development, probably, depending on the drainage.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Anybody like to comment? Belinda, Councillor Rideout.
Belinda Rideout, Gillingham. We're looking at this on paper and the diagrams there. I mean, it's not out of keeping, I don't think. I think it does. The dwelling does fit on the space.
Yes.
Small dwelling, but could be very useful to someone. So I'm quite happy to propose.
Thank you very much. I've had Councillor Pothcary. You're happy to second?
I was just a comment really.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of parking issues in Blandford. I'm very aware of all that. And this should help alleviate some of the issues. In a couple of the photographs, we could see that people were parked half on the pavement, half on the road. And if the 2 parking spaces that are not part of this application do come forward, then that will be 3 for this house, which is going to help alleviate a lot of the problems. On that basis, I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? No, good. Can we move to a vote? All those in favour as proposed by the officer? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to say there's no urgent business and there is no exempt business. So I will close the meeting at 4.